All right, what's going on out there in the YouTubes? Look, corrections. So, this Jussie Smollett thing has turned into the worst possible situation that we could possibly imagine. So, I remember what I said about the comments I saw after the story first broke. And I remember saying that if this is true, this is really bad. There are some debatable things about it. But if it's true, it's really bad. And discounting it wholesale was not something that I was willing to do socially. I wasn't talking about from a law enforcement standpoint. And I still stand by that. The comments I saw were still disgusting. That doesn't make them any less disgusting now that this dude has been arrested for possibly making, allegedly making, let's use the term correctly, allegedly making a false accusation. So let's a couple things. Why is it so easy to believe? Well, from a personal standpoint, it's easy to believe. While I'm not a homosexual, I'm not gay, but I am black, and the initial story I read, and basically tidbits, because I time is a factor. I'm not reading 18 stories to figure out what happened, but the fact that he claimed that he was attacked, the patterns. I think the best way I heard it was on the news this morning. It was just kind of an editorial comment. It was the patterns, right? So when the story first broke, all the different little tidbits I heard and that I got fit the pattern. It fits a pattern. What is that? What I mean by that is that saying that, oh, he just made it up and this is suspect, just on its face, for no other reason that you just don't want to believe it, is kind of BS, because it fits the pattern. I'm black. I myself, my father, grandfather, my father-in-law, my wife, my sister, brother, countless friends that there was a on Facebook, when I was really I was a little bit more active on Facebook. We got to talking about racism in general. This is a few years ago, and even in the very quote unquote tolerant, very progressive, very liberal area that I live in Maryland, the stories of direct, violent, either verbal or physical racism that started to pop up reminded me of where I grew up. I mean, before I moved here, when I moved here in high school, I thought Maryland was a utopia by comparison. I have experienced racial violence. Everybody I just named, including the many people of my classmates, both the ones I graduated with and those graduated before and after me, I mean, represented in the people that responded, so you were clear, was about 8 classes of my high school, literally in the center of one of the wealthiest, most progressive and liberal areas of Maryland. All of us have experienced verbal and or physical racism. It fits the pattern. And yes, I'm going to throw it out there, is my example I just gave very anecdotal. It is. It's anecdotal to people I know. So it could be an outlier, but I tend to think that it's not, just because of how many people, how many generations it spans. Of course, my father had it way worse than me, and his father had it way worse than him, and so on and so forth, till we get one generation past my grandfather into slavery. But since then, everybody in my family has experienced some sort of racial violence perpetrated against them with very, very little, if any, justice served, whether it be social or criminal. So the Jussie Smollett story does carry weight in the fact that his original story does fit a pattern. Fits a very common pattern that is, while not as prevalent as it was 20 years ago or 25 years ago, when I was a freshman in high school, or 35 years ago when I was a child, or 45. You see where I'm going? Times have changed, but they really haven't changed. Where physical violence would go unchecked, now physical violence can kind of gets checked a little bit. Now it may not be called what it is all the time, but it gets checked. But verbal, now we have the internet where people can just keyboard warrior their way all their racism and get away with whatever they want to say damn near anonymously. But it does carry a pattern, and I think ignoring that pattern it does the perpetrator and the perpetrated a disservice when it comes to figuring out where we are in our country. Now, here's the big problem, because you have these racism deniers, the people that can run around claiming things that literally you don't need to research to find. You don't need to do much research to find out if they're true or not. The people that will deny the Holocaust, people that will deny that black people have or ever were treated poorly after slavery or even during slavery. People that can legitimately claim and defend that Thomas Jefferson was just a kind man who had a loving affair with one of his slaves. People like that, with that mindset, can the amount of backflips your brain has to take to get there will allow you to take this Jussie Smollett story and apply it to all. I'm not saying everybody will. What I'm saying is you're already in the mindset of taking all reports of racial violence and all reports of, and only specifically against black people, and LGBT people, and discount them wholesale. Which is why, if you pay attention, the black community, the LGBT, matter of fact, I'm gonna tell you straight up, I went to go get dinner one day, and this is kind of random, that before it even was even known to be suspect, right? The day I think within 24 hours after the story broke, I went to go get my wife some pizza at the local little Pie 5 around here. We were just talking. I had just posted the video about the comments that I had read, and what's funny is I got to talking with the guy behind the counter. We go to Pie 5 pretty regularly, so we're regular customers. The guy knows us. He's a young African American gay man that works there. He's a pretty cool guy. We were just talking randomly and just about just some of the crazy stuff we were seeing out there, and then the Jussie Smollett thing came up there, and he pointed out to me like, "Hey, this is suspect. Like, I'm gay, I'm black, and I'm from Chicago. I have a lot of friends in Chicago," and they all were like, he was saying, all my friends are like, this is some suspect stuff. He was like, it could be that he's looking for attention. It could be that he's trying to cover up for who he was going to go see. Like, literally just so many different theories as to why, but it was already suspect in the gay community. Let's go ahead and leave that there. Black people weren't necessarily suspect. They were just like, look, if this is true, this sucks. And if it's false, this sucks even more. Which is really the kind of sentiment I got just again, anecdotally talking to people that I know and, in my community. And it's kind of how we look at any report of racial violence or racial tension, that if it's true, if it happened, we're not surprised. I mean, we're not shocked that a black gay man got beat up in the street and throw a noose around his neck and pour bleach on him. Like, that doesn't shock me, right? What angers me is that it could be false. that actually angers me because it takes the validity away of a real problem that we still have yet to address in this country. We might address it in the moment, but we don't address it. And so that's the one thing that I will say that we're gonna see, the standard right-wing response. See, we told you that there's no such thing as racism. See, we told you that black people are just making it up. See, we told you that you guys are blowing it out of proportion. We're gonna get that. We get that all the time. Again, not surprised. The problem is it's gonna make them feel like they have valid reason to say so, even if they don't. That's one. Two, you're gonna push down reports of said violence. That's a big problem. But what you're going to see also, if you pay attention, watch the response from leaders in the African American community, from commentators of the African American community, anecdotally talk to people when they tell you they are pissed that this could be false, and we hope he gets prosecuted. His worst enemy will be the very people that loved him. Not necessarily turning on him, but in this case, for this particular moment, he's done. Like, he's toast. There is no, if this is true, if it is proven, will be on a reasonable doubt, he will not be supported at all. An apology will be like the least of his worries. Let's just put it that way. He's gonna have to do more than just apologize for this one. And his career could be done. And nobody really cares. I can tell you right now, people that are calling for him to be kicked off the show ain't white. I can tell you that right now. It's the people who watch the show are just like, no, we cancel you right now. So the self-correction in the black community's always been that way. Let's just be real. Let's keep it 100% here. The black community will always self-correct. Minority communities in general will always self-correct. There's a reason why Milo Yiannopoulos is not well loved in the gay community. There's a reason for that, because he's a traitor. I mean, that's it. And not saying that he needs to spout some community line. Just don't actively promote the very thing that gets people in your community killed. And that's what Jussie Smollett did. It angers me because I have, on multiple occasions through my life, especially as a child, especially in high school, before I moved to Maryland, in Georgia, experienced, racial violence. I've been beaten up by a skinhead. I've been beaten up with a kid wearing a Klan shirt. I've been called the N-word in the middle of the day randomly. I've been jumped, in the middle of my class, just minding my own business. I've had a guy rip me out of my chair and start wailing on my face. Those things have happened to me. And the fact that, someone's tried to put a noose around my neck, just as a symbolic noose. Racist people do this stuff. This is not made up. This is not, again, it fits the pattern. Well, I've never had bleach poured on me, probably because they didn't have any at the time. But I've taken my fair share of licks and dished some out to openly racist people. So, but I'm not going out searching for them, right? As much as I want to go, and this is the other thing, jumping back on my commentary about Candace Owens, is that whole oppression Olympics thing. I generally don't think, I feel like I'm an average, educated, black, middle-class man. And I can honestly say I'm not going out of my way to find racism. Now, I'm aware that every time I get pulled over, for whatever reason, I don't care if I'm right or wrong, that could be my last day on earth. I'm acutely aware of that, and have been my entire life. But I'm not going around, screaming from the mountaintops, "Oh, I'm such a victim." That's not the case. What Jussie Smollett did is the very thing Candace Owens talks about, and he's going to be persecuted by his own community for it. We won't need the help of whites. We won't need. I mean, jail will be going to prison will be a vacation from the ridicule he's going to get from his own community. And that's what I have to say about that. I mean, I just feel like we need to be aware that and not let this. So, people in the community need to not let this be a thing and correct anyone who says, see, Jussie Smollett is the reason why we believe there's no such thing as racism, or whatever excuse they give to spout racist crap. If they use this incident as that, it must be dealt with firmly and upfront. No, pause. Jussie Smollett did a bad thing, but that doesn't mean that racism doesn't exist. That doesn't mean that violence against the LGBT community doesn't exist. And don't allow that to be the narrative, because I guarantee you, watch Fox News, I don't need to watch what Ben Shapiro is going to say. I don't need to watch what Tucker Carlson is going to say. I don't need to watch a Nazi to tell me what a Nazi is going to say, because I already know. I've heard it my whole life. I grew up before I moved to Maryland. I grew up around. I was one of 4 in my elementary school, one of 9 in my middle school, and one of about 20 in my high school. And best believe, I didn't hardly have classes with any other black people until I moved to Maryland. And that's the kind of stuff I heard then. And the same stuff they say on Fox News now is the same commentary that I heard then. So it's the same. It's the same stuff. This is not new. So. That being said, and if anybody's wondering how come I didn't tell when I did get into fights with and did get beat up by racist people, I did. I did. And there were times that I didn't. The guy that kept calling my mom in middle school, who kept calling my mom a wetback spick and all kinds of racist stuff. He got the luxury of having a lunch table flipped on him. And then I put him in a chokehold. At that time, I was very heavily into karate. I was taking Taekwondo, and I was almost a black belt at that point. I put him in basically a chokehold we call a rear naked choke. When you're watching MMA, after all the verbal and physical abuse I took from that kid, he learned not to mess with me again. I was suspended a lot of the time. A lot of time I got in-school suspension was for my own safety in middle school. I got in-school suspension 7th grade, I think like 22 times. Less than half of those times I actually was an aggressor in the situation. I wasn't going out picking fights. But there is, defending myself and then making sure that the next person doesn't come after me. So I might have gotten into a fight and then I went after the next guy that was there who I knew would be next. That was middle school. The principal knew what was up. He talked to my parents about it. He knew what he was up against. A few of the people that I was fighting with, their parents had power. In high school, most of the people that I ended up getting into fights with, their parents had power, and I mean like legislative power. And the principal knew what was going on. He was very aware of the racism in the school. Whenever something happened to me, he was very aware the cops were called, all that, and the people got off scot-free. So it's not like I didn't tell anybody. It's not like I chose to keep it to myself. You start breaking school property with people's faces, then that tends to bring the cops. But I had the cops come and tell the principal. I remember sitting in the office, the cops come to tell the principal that I should be prosecuted, and I was actually defending myself. And he stood up for me. But the person that actually attacked me did not get what he deserved. So it's one of those things. And then being called a nigger wholesale. That happened so often that, like, telling somebody other than my parents who are acutely aware that racism exists, what is that going to do? You get called that in the store. You get called monkey at the McDonald's. You get called, you get followed around the Kmart. Like, it was part of life for me growing up where I lived. Ironically enough, the demographics of that area that I lived has changed quite a bit. But yeah. Anyway, I'm going to cut this off. I think it went a little over than I wanted to. But yeah, everybody love everybody. Like, subscribe, comment, please. If you if you have a comment, have a question, have a concern, have a criticism, I answer the comments, sometimes in video form. That's all I got. Everybody love everybody. Have a good day.